Hey guys, welcome back. So today we'll study about default methods in interfaces that were introduced in Java 8. Why we are discussing default methods separately? Because many of the programmers are usually confused with this concept. So we'll talk about it in detail today. This is your go-to video if you want to study default methods in Java. Okay, so first of all, default methods can only be used in interfaces and not classes. So that's the first and foremost point. Next, let's study about the why part. I mean, why were default methods introduced suddenly in Java 8? So the main reason for introducing default methods was interface evolution with binary compatibility. What does that mean? For example, I am an API designer and I design an interface with say 4 methods. And after an year, I want to add another method to that interface. So all the classes that are implementing that particular interface should implement that method if we are talking prior to Java 8. But in Java 8, this was made much more easier. That is, I can just add a default implementation of that method into my interface, and all the classes implementing that interface need not implement that particular method explicitly. So binary compatibility means no need to recompile the implementation code. We just need to change the interface, add the default implementation of the method, and that's it. You don't need to recompile the implementing classes. Okay, so that was a very important point for introducing default methods. Okay, so now the second reason was interfaces with default implementation. I mean, there are times when we want to introduce a method in an interface and the implementation of that method is the same in most of the classes. Only in one or two or some specific use cases, the implementation goes different, otherwise it's the same. So in that cases as well, default methods come really handy because we have the default implementation inside the interface itself. So all the classes that need a different implementation can implement that method explicitly. Otherwise, no need to implement that method. Okay, so that was the why part. Now, by just discussing the why part, could you guess a simple question? That is, can default methods be declared as final? The answer is no, the default methods cannot be declared as final. And why? Because at the end of the day, classes need to implement the methods from interfaces. So they cannot be declared as final because final methods cannot be overridden in any of the subclass or subinterface. So default methods cannot be final because a subclass can provide a more specific implementation of the default method declared in the interface. Let's quickly demonstrate this as well. Here I have an interface A, and I have a default method, default void hello. So it just prints hello from interface A. So I'll just try to make this method as final, and let's see if the compiler gives us an error. As soon as I put the final keyword in front of the default method, the compiler is throwing us an error. Okay, let's quickly move on to the next point, as there is a lot to cover in this video. One obvious thing is that default methods are instance methods. Default methods cannot be static. Let's quickly demonstrate this as well. I'm declaring this default method as static, and the compiler again gives us an error. Now the next pointer is that most of the people get confused in this, that default access level and default methods are completely different. You must keep a note of this. Default access level is related to the visibility, and default methods are just introduced in Java 8 to provide the default implementation of a method inside an interface. And yes, the access level of default methods in an interface is always public and it cannot be changed. Let's quickly demonstrate this as well. As we all know that methods in an interface are implicitly public, so this hello method is implicitly public. If we just put in a public keyword as well, that would work fine. The compiler is happy and it doesn't throw an error, so this is good. Next, if I just make it as private, say if I make this method as private, the compiler gives us an error. Let's come on to the next pointer. If a default method is overridden in a subclass, what would be its access level? So this particular question is related to the overriding rules that have been discussed in the method overriding video. If you have not watched it yet, I would recommend you to pause this video here and watch it first and then come on to this video to get a better understanding. If you've already watched it, the question must be very easy for you, as we have just discussed that default methods are implicitly public and the visibility cannot be changed. So in the subclass as well, either we can keep the visibility same or broaden it. So public visibility is the broadest visibility in Java. So if we are overriding a default method in a subclass, it must be public. Let's quickly demonstrate this as well. Here, as we have already seen, that we have declared a default method hello inside interface A, and our class default method test is implementing interface A. Now let's quickly declare the hello method here. Okay. As we see, the compiler is happy and it's not giving us any error. However, if we reduce the visibility of this hello method that has been overridden from interface A, then the compiler would obviously give us an error. Let's quickly demonstrate this. As we see, the compiler is giving us an error that cannot reduce the visibility of the inherited method from interface A. Okay, so this was a basic overview of default methods in Java. Now let's come on to an important aspect of default methods, that is conflict resolution strategies. And these conflict resolution strategies are not just limited to default methods, it applies to abstract method as well, and we'll discuss it in this video only. Okay, so the first pointer on conflict resolution strategy is, what if a superclass and a super interface have the same method names? So in such a case, if a superclass and a super interface have the same method names, the method in the superclass gets higher precedence. So let's quickly test this. We have the main class as default method test, and it extends a class C and implements interface A and interface B. Now as we see, for default method test, we have a super interface as interface A and a superclass as class C. So we'll declare a same method in interface A as well as class C, and let's see what would be invoked. So interface A already has a method hello, and in class C, let's declare a method hello again. Now we'll create an object of the default method test and invoke the method hello from it. Okay, let's quickly create an object of it. Just one pointer here, if you do not understand why have I put interface A in the object reference type and instantiated it via default method test, then this concept has been discussed briefly in the method binding video. So I would recommend you to watch the method binding video to get an in-depth understanding of the reference type and the object type. How do we instantiate it, why do we do so, and what would the compiler and JVM do in different cases. Now on line number 47, I have invoked the method hello from the created object, and our expectation is that the superclass would get more precedence and hello from class C would be printed onto the console. Let's quickly see that. As per expectations, hello from class C has been printed. Now, just related to this particular strategy, I have two questions for you. The first question is that, can an interface declare a method that overrides a method from the object class? I hope you guessed it correctly, that obviously not. An interface cannot override a method of the object class. Why? Because as we just studied, that a method of the superclass gets higher precedence over a method in the super interface, and object class is the superclass of every class in Java. That's why we cannot override a method from the object class in an interface. The method implementation in object class would always be considered. Let's quickly demonstrate this as well. In the interface A, I would be overriding the equals method of the object class. Let me just uncomment it, and as we see, the compiler throws us an error. What error does it throw? Let's quickly have a look. A default method cannot override a method from the object class. So that's a trick question that could be asked in interviews. Next, is there a way to force the implementation of the super interface and not the superclass? So I want that the object obj should invoke the hello method from interface A and not class C. Is there a way I can do it? Yes, and there is a way that I can do it. How? I can just implement the hello method in default method test and then invoke the method hello of the interface A from within it. So let's quickly see this as well. So here I'm declaring a method hello, and you must notice a change in syntax when I invoke the hello method of the super interface. If I want to invoke a method of the super interface, I need to prefix the interface name before the super keyword. That is, instead of super.hello, I have to write interface a.super.hello, and that would invoke the hello method of the super interface. Now, if I run this class, I would be expecting hello from interface A would be printed onto the console. Let's quickly test this. And as per our expectations, hello from interface A has been printed onto the console. Okay, and a point to note here that this syntax is only applicable to the immediate parent interface of the class and not its grandparents. So you should keep a note of this, that you cannot use this particular syntax to invoke the methods of the grandparent interface. Okay, so let's move on to the next conflict resolution strategy. What if a super interface and a sub interface have the same method names? In such a case, as we have started in the method overriding video as well, uh, just similar to what classes do, the method in sub interface gets higher precedence, and the method in sub interface would be invoked. So let's quickly test this as well. I'll just comment out the hello method of the class and implement a hello method in interface B. Here we want a super interface and a sub interface, so I'll just extend interface B with interface A. Now interface A is the super interface, interface B is the sub interface, and we have implemented the same method hello in both the interfaces. Now my expectation is that hello from interface B would be printed onto the console. Let's quickly test this. As per our expectations, hello from interface B has been printed onto the console. Okay, so related to this was about default methods. But what if I make the hello method in interface B as abstract? What would the compiler do then? I mean, can I override a default method with an abstract method? Is that possible? So yes, that is very well possible. You can override a default method with an abstract method, and then the default method would not be considered. So if I just override the hello method from interface A by an abstract method hello in interface B, then let's see what happens. The compiler is throwing us an error. What the error is, that the type default method test must implement the inherited abstract method interface b.hello. So here as well, the sub interface gets higher precedence and the method from sub interface is considered. As it is an abstract method, it is mandatory for us to implement it in the implementing class. So that was the question, that can a default method be overridden by an abstract method? The answer is yes, a default method can be overridden by an abstract method in a sub interface or an abstract class implementing the parent interface. So this is applicable to both a sub interface or an abstract class that is implementing the parent interface. Okay, so now let's come on to the third and the last conflict resolution strategy, that is, what if two super interfaces have the same method names? In this case, there would not be any inheritance between interfaces. We would just have interface A, interface B, and the default method test implementing both the interfaces. And interface A and interface B would have the same method names. So we have two super interfaces, both have the same method names. In this case, which of the two methods would be considered? Okay, so let's quickly test it out. So now we have two interfaces, interface A and interface B. Both have the same method names hello, and now I'm invoking the method hello from the created object. The compiler is already giving us an error, and let's see what it is. Duplicate default methods named hello with the parameters empty and empty are inherited from the types interface B and interface A. So in such a case, the compiler considers both the methods as duplicate, and it recommends us to override the method hello in the implementing class. So we'll need to explicitly override the method hello in the implementing class in such a case. Okay, so let me just uncomment this hello method in the implementing class. I'll just replace the method body with a sysout. So now my expectation is that the hello method from the implementing class would be invoked and hello from default method test would be printed onto the console. Let's quickly test it out. Hello from default method test has been printed onto the console as per our expectations. But in this case, what if I do not want to explicitly declare a method hello in the implementing class? Do I have an option? So yes, I definitely have an option, because this implementing class implements both the interfaces, but it also extends a class. So it has a superclass, and if I declare the hello method in the superclass, it would always be considered irrespective of what there is in the interfaces. So if I just uncomment this particular hello method in class C, the compiler error is gone. The compiler is happy now, and it would invoke the hello method from class C. Let's quickly test it out. Yes, hello from class C has been printed onto the console. Okay, so these were the three conflict resolution strategies which are very, very important, and you should keep a note of it. I know that's a lot to grasp in a single video. I would recommend you to watch it again if you didn't understand any of the part. And if you have any questions, definitely I'll answer it in the comment section below. Okay, so a couple of points that are left. Let's quickly cover that as well. Okay, so now how to invoke the default method of a super interface from the default method of a sub interface. So here I have an interface A and interface B. Interface B would in this case extend interface A. Now what do I want to do? I want to invoke the hello method of the super interface from the hello method of the sub interface. So the syntax is similar to what we have already studied. We prefix the interface name. Now the hello method of interface B would first invoke the hello method of interface A and then move on to the remaining method body. A last note that you should keep in mind that synchronized and final keywords cannot be used with default methods in interfaces. Okay, so that was pretty much it about default methods in interfaces, and I know it was a lot. It took me a lot of time as well to summarize all of these points in a single video. So if you didn't understand any bit of the video, I would recommend you to watch it again, and definitely I'll be available to answer any of your queries in the comment section below. Okay, so that was pretty much it about this video. I'll meet you in the next one. Till then, goodbye. Have a nice day.